This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show, the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here's your host, Mr. Steve Jones. Steve, it's not 1 o'clock anymore.
No, it's
11.
11 a.m. It's 8 on the Pacific time zone.
A little early.
But that's okay.
It's what, 9 o'clock Victor Wembanyama? 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock?
It's San Antonio Central Time, so it's at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. for Wemby.
Yes,
Got
10
it.
a.m. for Wemby, your guy.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting. We'll start there since you brought it up. It is interesting to see the hype on him, not from him. This is not somebody that's gone out and bragged about what he can do. He has been very level-headed about everything. He's not going to play in the FIBA World Cup. Because he wants to concentrate on playing for San Antonio, which I respect a lot. Now, down the road, could he? Sure, down the road, but he wants to get off to a good start in the league. He has all of this hype. And I mean massive hype, like he is the second coming of somebody. I have no idea who. And as you know, I always take an exponentially more cautious approach. Like, it looks like he's a terrific prospect, but being a prospect is a fancy way of saying you haven't done it before. So I want to see how it plays out for him along the way. So those are my expectations are, let's see.
I think the expectations people have for him are impacted by the fact that the Spurs have their last 2 first overall picks were Tim Duncan and David Robinson.
Right.
Both their rookie years were named All-Stars and won Rookies of the Year.
Right.
So the bar is, and they're both Hall of Famers. They're 2 of the best big men ever.
Yeah.
Right? The bar is set on the ceiling already. And so he's got to surpass that, is what people are suggesting, because he, unlike Tim and David, has the skill to play outside and inside, which is different. I mean, Tim Duncan's the big fundamental and David Robinson's the admiral. What's Wemby going to be? I want to know what his nickname is going to be. I really would like to know.
Well, probably Wemby.
Wemby. Again, the Stifle Tower is gone. You can't use that now. It's already used by another Frenchman in the league.
Yes.
Who's on a team that has
Rudy Gobert.
On a team that has 3 centers being paid a combined $400 million over the next few seasons.
I always admire roster construction. All right.
That looked like a happy face.
Yay.
Tis the season for roster construction, Steve. For everyone, really.
And you have to be smart about what you do. But back to Wemby first, then we'll go to roster construction after that. Again, I don't have an expectation for him. I've only seen highlights. I've never watched a full game. I asked Mike DeCourcy of Sporting News about him, and he said, Steve, I only saw him play 1 game. And obviously he was really good in that game. He brings he brings 2 elements to the table that you can't teach. I mean, you can't teach height. Right? You just can't. Right? And you can't teach the guy's mobility. I mean, you can make yourself more mobile, but he's already naturally mobile to begin with. He needs more weight. And I don't mean he needs 50 pounds, no, but he's going to get pounded in there. There are going to be times he's going to have to play in the post. He's going to have to be able to absorb the blows that he's going to get in the post, right? And finish. Turn it into a 3-point play and not turn it into a miss. And it's not just that, this happened in this game. It's happening in December, and it accumulates. And it happens in January, and it accumulates. And it happens in February, and it accumulates. And you start to get sore, and it takes something out of you. Conversely, it seems like he has the ability to take your guy and bring him out to you. Unless you decide you want to play zone. Now you got on a switch a 6'4" guy playing a 7'5" guy. All right. So it's going to be interesting to see. And he has some talent around him, but there's a reason San Antonio drafted first. He has some talent around him. Maybe a little bit more talent around him than most teams that are drafting first overall, but not a lot. They've had a real drain on talent. They have not been able to replace Duncan. They have not been able to replace Ginobili. They have not been able to replace Leonard. They have not been able to replace Parker. They've tried, but they haven't been able to. And he's going to be the focal point of everything that they do moving forward. And he could be the kind of guy that, if he is as good as they claim, could be a destination for a free agent or two that want to play with him. But it's going to take time, and I think he's somebody that at 7'5", he's going to need at least 20 more pounds of muscle put on him to absorb some of the pounding that you will get in the game. You look at Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is a big man. He's not just a 7-footer. He's a big man. Big across the chest area. Big upper body. But can step out and shoot threes. Well, that's the kind of player he'll be going against. Right? And he's going to have to use his strengths of the step back, the strengths of the jump hook, the strengths of the three-pointer, the ability to put the ball on the deck. And let's face it, he'll block shots. He'll block a lot of shots. He's 7'5". What's his wingspan? Do you know what his wingspan is, Kyle?
His wingspan is immense. Let me do some Googling.
Why don't you look that up to see, because this comes into the shot blocking part of it. If he's sitting there at 7'5", so what's that? It's 89 inches?
He has an 8-foot wingspan.
8-foot wingspan. Okay.
That is, you are almost able to dunk with that, just standing straight up.
In other words, when he takes a jump hook, he's shooting down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I always say about Zach Edey. All the Zach Edey games I've broadcast in my career, when he does that jump hook, he's shooting down. So it's now the interesting time. It is the free agent time. And let's see if San Antonio ponies up some money to bring a couple of guys in with the idea that you get to play with this guy. But as for my expectation, I don't have an expectation. Am I anxious and interested to watch him play? Yes. What do I expect? I don't know. Right? Now, I know that's not the talk show way to do things.
How dare you not give us a highlight? Awful.
Right? But I don't believe in that stuff. Anyway, if I don't know, I don't know. I don't know how he's going to play. We'll find out.
We will find out. And I love that his answer when he did his press conference after being drafted, he was asked the question of, what do you think you need to do to get ready for the NBA? And he said, I need to not put on weight. I need to bulk up, which is the right answer.
Right,
most of the time people say, put on weight. And he's like, no. I'm going to get my body bigger and stronger. I'm going to bulk up, which
has to be the right weight.
Mm-hmm.
So take, for example, let's go Penn State football 1 second, then we'll go to roster construction. Akeem Beeman on the latest weight chart is up 28 pounds to 284. Akeem has always been a guy that has played in the 250s to around 260. So he's quick. So what I want to be interested to see, and this Chuck Losey and Alvin and James and all those guys over there in strength and conditioning do a fabulous job of putting on bulk, which does translate into weight, but putting on bulk while you either maintain your quickness, if not get a little more, believe it or not, even quicker at times. So that's what I'm going to watch to see with him in the preseason. Do I see the same quickness at 284? 28 more pounds on him. Jordan Vandenberg is up 15 pounds to 301, 302, somewhere like that. So James talked about getting bigger on the defensive front. Devon Ellis is already a 300-pounder. Vandenberg is at 300. Beeman's up to 284. Zane Durant now is in the 280s. And I was doing some preview. I was being interviewed on a podcast. I went through all the defensive line. I'm rattling off names left and right. I accidentally left Zane Durant's name out. I'm sure people are thinking, what does that mean? It just means I was sitting there off the top of my head and forgot to mention him. Sorry, Zane.
Disappointed,
because
Steve.
Number 28 is going to play a big role in the football team. So my apologies, Zane. Of the 60 names I mentioned, I forgot 61. But he's gained weight, and he's into the 280s now, and he's built in such a way where he has automatic leverage to begin with, which is a big plus at that position on the field. I saw Davius Collins lost 5. He can't do that. He's a great kid. I talked to him briefly about, hey, it's great to have you here. He goes, I love being here. It's great. But he is not exactly, he's not Schwarzenegger. Okay, he's like, and then I saw the weights. I'm going, he's down 5. How could it be? Oh, excuse me.
Took off the ankle weights for once, and then bam.
Come on, let's go. But that's going to be important to see. The ability to maintain quickness to go with now bulk and added strength. See, and that's what Wembanyama will need. Bulk, but added strength to go with the bulk. And how many times he's going to have to power his way through somebody that's an older, more established, powerful guy. And Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid, somebody. Right?
I am fascinated to see him against an Embiid or him against my favorite is Steven Adams. I would love to see what that looks like, because Steven Adams is known for being the strongest guy in the NBA, and he's built like a tank. And so I'd love to see what the two of them going one-on-one looks like.
Yeah, I saw the AT&T commercials. Yes, I did see that. Mm-hmm. Not bad for a pick guy.
No.
He's done well. He's done very well.
But it's going to be fun, and roster construction is the big talking point now.
Well, it is a big okay. It starts with who is your coach. You're like, well, why does it have to start with who is your coach? How do you want to play? Your roster construction needs to match how you want to play. So let's go give you a football example. The run and shoot offense. Why did the run and shoot offense come into being with Mouse Davis? Because I think he went to a team, I think it was Portland State, that had no tight ends when he got there. He said, okay, well, how do we work around this? And that's how they came up with it. So it depends on what you have, how you want to play. So you're in the NBA, all right? How do I want to play my center? Do I want my center to be an inside-out guy? Do I have an inside-out guy? All right? Okay, who do I want to feed the ball through? All right? Not everybody feeds the ball through the point guard, right? Denver doesn't. Denver feeds it through Jokic. Yeah, Murray makes plays, no question. Murray makes plays, from the point spot. But, Jokic is a guy that is like a point forward on that team. LeBron is like a point forward on the Lakers. So how do you want to play that way? And that's how you you work around it. You talk about Minnesota. They've got 3 centers. What the heck do they need 3 centers for?
Wish I knew.
I mean 3 centers. Right? How about 2? Right? Take the other one, turn it into a wing. Right? This is a wing game now in the NBA. Wings and guards. Now, is there still a place for big guys in there? No question. It's got to be the right kind of guy. But let's take Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo is not a 3-point shooter. He passes it up. He's a guy that works within, let's be fair, 15 feet of the basket. How about that? He's got some range. He can pop out, take a jumper from the foul line, things like that. He can pop out to the 15, 16 feet on the wing and take a jump shot and make it. He can do that. But that's who he is, and they make the most of it. That player still has a role in the league. You just don't need 3 of them on the same team. I mean, you just don't in the NBA. You also have to make decisions now, and I think this is a fun decision. They've now expanded the number of two-way players from 2 to 3 in the new basic agreement. fact, the Sixers already signed their 3 two-way players. That's why I'm interested to see what Andrew Funk does with Denver in the Summer League. Can he possibly get a two-way contract in the G League? Is it possible? I mean, because now you do have the added spot. It gives you more roster flexibility. Now, because there's X amount of games they have to play in the G League, there's X amount of games you have to play in the NBA, that makes that two-way spot fun. And they're all specialty guys, but you're going to get injuries during the course of the year. You're going to need some of those specialty guys to do something for you. But how do you want to play the game? Right? So take the Celtics. They have now changed in a trade a portion of their roster construction. They've had a big guy in Haywood, all right, and they've had a big guy in Williams, all right. So now they got Williams. All right. So Al Horford's there, all right, who's kind of more of a 4, but they'll play him at 5. Everything else was the same. Marcus Smart was pretty much the same. Now, these are guys that are different levels, but Smart's game was similar to Tatum's game, which was similar to Jaylen Brown's game. All right, you start going through all the guys that they have, and you had 4 guys, and then you put Malcolm Brogdon. That's 4 guys that are all really good, that are similar games. What they did was they traded out Marcus Smart. Now you're down to 3 guys with similar games, and you've added in Kristaps Porzingis, who has a different game than the other 3 guys. Right? Porzingis' game is different than Horford's. I mean, I think Horford wants to play the same, but Al, age is now, I mean, that's a factor. He can't play the same way as Porzingis does. And Williams doesn't play that way at all. Williams is a rim runner, a defensive player, rebounder. I mean, that's what he does. And so there's a team that looked at its roster construction and said, I've got 4 of the same. I need 3 of the same, and I need to make a change as to what we're doing, and they did it. Now, let's see how it fits. And this is all about how do things fit, but that's roster construction, where you go through an entire season and say, what do I need? I mean, the Lakers, Rob Pelinka has been interesting. All of his roster construction always comes at the trade deadline. It doesn't come at this time of the year. Yeah, you got Anthony Davis. Okay, yeah, all right. But what all the other moves that they make, it seems like year in and year out, the Lakers don't get off to good starts, and guess what? They then get to a certain point, and that's when their roster construction occurs. Okay, we need this and this, and it's always a list. It's always a list with those guys. Then you have a team like the Clippers. What do you do if you're the Clippers? I've got 2 big problems. Okay, 1, I've got Paul George. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And number 2, I got Kawhi Leonard. If I can get them both to play, I alleviate a lot of problems, especially Leonard. I've never been a big Paul George guy, sorry. Have not.
That's fair.
I just have been like, okay, he's good, but I mean, every time I turn around, analysts are turning him into the second coming, and I watch him play, and I go, yeah, he's good, but I don't think he's great. I mean, here we are. We need a point where we got to put the game on your shoulder. No, I don't think so. I don't need to put the game on your shoulders. I've seen them try to do it. He's had too many opportunities where it just hasn't gone well for him. You put the game on Kawhi Leonard's shoulders, you're like, oh, you know what? I like my chances. Then there's Portland. What will Portland do? They've drafted Scoot Henderson. Now they have Damian Lillard, who is, okay, he is, after everything I said about Paul George, I'm 180 when it comes to Damian Lillard. I think he is a fabulous player.
And he had his best season of his career last year. The man played the best he ever has in his 31, 32-year-old season. Like, you got to feel good about him aging at least.
But he plays a great game. I like how he plays. I think he's an unselfish player. He's not a guy that goes out to, quote, get his. He kind of looks around at some point and says, well, there's not a lot of help out here tonight. I think I better get going.
And then he puts up 70.
Right? He meshed beautifully with C.J. McCollum when they were there together. Tim Frazier told me nothing but great things about Lillard and McCollum. But Lillard, when Tim was with Portland, I talked to Tim a little bit after he was with Portland. He said Lillard couldn't have been any better to me. Right? Guy's a great teammate. So now they have to make a decision what to do. There's a guy that has never been in the finals, but that's a championship player.
Very much so. And Portland's in a weird spot right now where you've got Dame under contract, but do you commit to him as your guy going forward? Do you trade him? That's question number one on the top of the mind. If you commit to him, do you re-sign Jeremy Grant, who's a free agent and is going to earn a good chunk of change? Yep. Do you trade Yusuf Nurkic and try and get a new big man? Do you...
Wait a minute. The ESPN still needs the Nurkic highlights when Jokic gets a...
Sorry, I forgot about that.
Did you remember that?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Jokic signed a contract extension, and ESPN was showing Nurkic highlights. And I remember watching going, that's not Jokic.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
All Sports Network, really? We're the worldwide leader. It's like, that's not the right guy.
And alongside all of this, they have, again, one of those $20+ million guards, Anthony Simons, who he's going to not be the shooting guard of the future. That's going to be Shaedon Sharpe. He's not going to be the other guard of the future, who is Scoot Henderson, not a championship player. He's a great player to have.
He's a player that I would like to have off my bench that can give me some offense.
But $24 million?
Not at $24 million. I'm talking about, let's be realistic. Let's take the money part aside. Okay? He is in the NBA Finals, the 15 to 20 minute guy that comes off the bench about 7 or 8 minutes each half, gives you some really good offense, and helps you win the game.
He's your sixth man. Right? That's what the sixth man role was meant to be.
Right. Starting lineup? No.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way it is. It's not that he's not a good player. He's a good player. He's not a great player, and he's not the kind of guy who's like, hey, carry us to what?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Lillard, that's a different guy. See, I feel that way about Paul George. Paul George, to me, is a very good player. I don't feel like he's a championship player.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That's me.
And I think at least in terms of...
And he should be in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not big on like
he's a borderline. He's a all-timer, maybe not a Hall of Famer.
He's a really good player. He is not, in my opinion, a Hall of Fame player. He's not that cut above. Like, he's playing with the cut above guy, Kawhi Leonard. Okay? Leonard won championships in San Antonio, won championship with Toronto. Right? You know, when he plays, always the dangerous preface to a sentence, that's a big-time player. I mean, look what he did against Phoenix when he played. Like, holy mackerel.
Mm-hmm.
Came in, played great, even played great hurt.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he left and exited, Phoenix was able to win, and then Phoenix went into the fetal position in the next round, and that was it. And now they have a new team.
In terms of Paul George, I'd put him in the category of a player, and I didn't watch a lot of him because he was a bit before I really got into the NBA.
Pacers, yeah.
I was going to say that he's similar to like a Penny Hardaway, where great player, awesome, everyone, like, he is a great player in his time, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
Right, Penny.
He's a Penny-style player.
Penny got hurt, and that was the whole thing. He and Shaq were a good combination. Mm-hmm. Nick Anderson was a good third for Orlando.
But again, people know how good he was.
My old friend Brian Hill was the coach of that team. Mm-hmm. Brian was an assistant coach here at Penn State for 3 years.
Dang.
So.
Coming out with all the stories today.
Oh, BH? Oh, Bruce Parkhill wins his 100th game. It was at the Springfield Civic Center against UMass. UMass was renovating Curriex Cage, whatever. Okay, so they played at the Springfield Civic Center. They win the 100th game. Bruce loves pizza. Okay, so we go back to the room because it was going to be a multiple stop trip. The next stop was St. Joe's in Philadelphia, so we had to go down to Hartford the next day, take a flight. All right, down to Philly. So Bruce's saying was, there's no such thing as bad pizza. Like, okay. So we're sitting there. I had a slice or two, and Brian Hill was sitting next to me, and I say, BH, I said, is this any good? He goes, I don't think so. The next day at the airport, BH comes up to me and says, Steve, how's your stomach reacting to that pizza last night? I said, nah, not that great. He goes, me neither. Brian was a great guy. Absolutely great guy. You'd have really liked him. Smart basketball guy, you know. And then he's sitting there. In fact, I think he was the first ever coach of the Vancouver Grizzlies.
Dang.
We're now the Memphis Grizzlies, but the Vancouver Grizzlies with Bryant Reeves and those guys. I think he was their first ever coach. Then he went on and did some TV, and Brian was good on TV. Liked him. Now, that was just a side story, just to make the show.
Speaking of side stories, well, teams we've kind of discussed a bit, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I've been doing some looking while we have been sitting here, which never good to give me a computer and let me look up statistics and numbers and stuff.
They need a point guard. Okay?
Well, they have Mike Conley on a bit of a non-guaranteed deal.
They've got to get,
it works.
They've got to get him because Edwards, I think, is a marvelous player.
Well, that is the man I want to discuss.
When they drafted him, I was like, great. 1 year at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia did nothing. I'm like, is this another Ben Simmons? And then I watched him play a little bit, and this guy is a good NBA player.
And he very much so has the gear where he could shift up and become all NBA guy.
I think he's a better player on that team than Karl Anthony Towns is.
Mm-hmm.
Karl Anthony Towns gets into foul trouble too much, gets banged up too much. And Edwards, prime time, I'd rather have him with the ball than Towns.
Yeah. And do you know what the interesting part of Anthony Edwards is right now?
Well, he's got to be getting to the end of his rookie contract.
This is the final year of his rookie contract. They did extend the team option to him 2 years ago, whatever it was. Sure. This is the last year. He's earning $13.5 million. Right. He is he's extension eligible for, I believe it's 5 years, 200, I believe. Okay. Or it's 5 years, 207, but with incentives could get up to 250 if he gets all NBA this season. It could jump up itself.
Sure. Okay.
So he's sitting at this big extension. He has not signed it yet. It has not been offered. It can't be offered until at some point, I think, this week or next week, somewhere in this vicinity.
All right.
What if he doesn't sign it? What happens then? I've been, as you've been talking, I was sitting here thinking about it. I was saying, okay,
money's important. He's going to get money no matter what. Okay, so let's start with that part.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he's going to get money no matter what. Okay, so let's do this from a non-player point of view. All right, so I'll do this from a personal point of view. Obviously, I've done Penn State basketball a long time. And I've done Penn State football for a long time. And as a non-player and as the broadcaster, I can tell you what winning means. Right? I cannot begin to tell you what it felt like for Jack and me to make the walk from the Rose Bowl to the bus after the game. And went in the locker room around the guys and just what it felt like. And we didn't play. We just announced it. I can't begin to tell you what it meant to go back and broadcast an NCAA tournament. Because I had not been there for 11 years. And now let's change it to a player. Okay? So I'm a non-player. Thrilled to have been in the spots I was in because of the efforts of everybody else. The players do all the hard work. I get the privilege of saying what they're doing. All right? There has to be a point for a player where I'm going to get the money no matter what. I've got to win. There's nothing like winning. I want to be Jamal Murray standing out there on the winning side. Okay? I want to be Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs putting my arms in the air because I won a Super Bowl. I want to be like Stone of Vegas lifting the Stanley Cup. That's what I want to be. That's okay, where I'm getting my money, but on the biggest stage, I'm getting something that goes with it that's winning instead of the frustration of going through an 82-game grind so I can get to the 8th seed or the 6th seed, or hey, I can avoid the play-in round. But gee, I'm gonna face one of the top 4 seeds in the opening round, and we're the underdog again. And I've got to wonder where he is with that, because when he played at Georgia, they didn't win. Right? He's with Minnesota, they kind of win. But they're not advancing. They're not going anywhere with it. Look at Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis finally made the playoffs as an 8 seed with New Orleans. Right? But then he went to the Lakers and became a champion. Well, now, guess what? Is Anthony Davis looked at differently now? Just looked at. The perception of him is different because he won a championship. He's a great player, but instead of being a great player on a decent team, not good or great, but decent, you kind of get lost a little bit. Anthony Edwards is a really good player on a decent team, but they're not a championship contender. I think at some point players want to play in meaningful games, right? And then the longer it goes, now he's still a young player, but the longer it goes, doesn't it get a little frustrating, like going out there and saying, God, I feel like I'm shoveling it against the tide here, and it just keeps washing up onto my feet.
Yeah.
I want to go someplace. That's why Damian Lillard's going to be interesting. But I want to go someplace, and I want to play in the big games. Right? I'm going to get my money no matter what. And I think that's an interesting decision for him to make. Now, loyalty's important too.
It is.
But the organization, okay, has to be not only loyal to you, but loyal to you to the point where we're going to put people around you.
And it is interesting because it was discussed for a while, like, would Zion sign his extension? Because Zion was this weird case, but he was hurt, so it was a bit of a different scenario with him.
To be honest with you, he's an irrelevant player in this league.
But even so, at that point in time when he signed his contract, it was like, is he going to sign? With Edwards, like, he's not the issue on that team. He's had great playoff performances.
He's the guy I need to keep.
He's the killer in the room. He's the give me the ball the last 10 seconds of the game, and also he can defend the lights out. I mean, he took the assignment in 2022 of John Moran. He defended him real well.
Yeah.
He was the guy, him and Jaden McDaniels, who also is contract extension eligible this offseason, as they're both in the same draft. Mm-hmm. So he's sitting here. He's not the problem. They have no draft picks for the foreseeable future because they traded all of them to Utah for Rudy Gobert.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of confusing trade that when it happens, why is everybody confused except Minnesota?
They gave up.
I don't get that. Why? How could everybody be confused? I mean, they made the trade. I sat there going, they did what? For him?
All of that. Then they also gave up all these players and just so much. And it doesn't feel like there was any logic to it. They're like, oh, we think Rudy Gobert and Cat could play together because Cat gets to go outside and be the greatest big man shooter of all time, which he keeps saying, like, which, yes, we understand, like, you are. Like, you're the best shooting big man ever, like you and Dirk, but give me more than 8 points in a playoff game. He's had multiple playoff games where he's gotten 8 points or 12 points and he's fouled out. And he's like, oh, it wasn't my fault. And it's like, that was your fault. You are the guy who's about to get paid $60 million.
Did the same thing at Kentucky. Okay? You'd be amazed. Okay? The numbers are the numbers.
For the next 2 seasons.
I see this all the time in sports where people are saying, well, they'll look at the analytics of somebody, and I'll be sitting there going, yeah, and I'm looking at his numbers here. Right? I'll give you an example. Guys like, I'll give you an example. I'll see pitchers. Now I'll look at their college numbers, and they'll be like, well, he was 4-7 with a 10.2 4.1 ERA. Like going, okay, why is he here? Oh, he's got the spin rate and the da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, then all of a sudden the stats come out like after like 9-10 games, and guess what his ERA is? 10.41.
Not bad.
Right. No, the numbers are the numbers. Doing a game one time, Dick Girardi and I were doing a game with Michigan. In Michigan, in the first half, they were a 33% three-point shooting team. This is a few years ago. 33% three-point shooting team, right? In the first half, they hit 10 out of 14 threes, and they're beating Penn State, right? In the second half of the game, okay, so 10 out of 14, okay, they went 2 for 22 in the second half in threes and ended up 12 of 36, and Penn State won the game. What's 12 of 36?
That's what, 333?
33%. The numbers are the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how that turns out. So you look at Karl Anthony Towns and some of the big games he played at Kentucky, and I don't mean, hey, we went out and played a great game and beat South Carolina. Hey, good for you. No. And he does the same thing in the NBA. It's like the bigger the spot, doesn't play well. Meanwhile, to Edwards' credit, the bigger the spot, he plays really well.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't play in any big games at Georgia. He played in no big games at Georgia at all. Right? And so I give them credit. Whomever scouted him for the T-Wolves did a heck of a job.
Yeah.
But but their roster is a mess, and the Gobert thing has set them back. I don't understand why an organization makes a move like that, and virtually everybody says, what?
Mm-hmm.
Except them. Oh, no, we did a great job. Everything go, well, I'm not so sure you did.
It was universally seen as the Utah Jazz winning that trade. There was almost nobody who said that it was at least an even trade.
They could draft anybody. Doesn't matter.
The Timberwolves, the only first-round picks they own of their own going forward are 2024 and 2028, I think.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of seconds going forward, unless they got rid of them too. But they are sitting here with not a lot in the artillery left.
Yeah.
And Rudy Gobert is now worth almost nothing compared to what he was back a year ago, almost exactly today. Like, you can maybe get a first-round pick for Rudy Gobert if you're lucky.
Yep.
I don't honestly know what Cat's worth is. One of the two of them is not going to be here, I'm guessing, in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like, what does Anthony Edwards do? Does he say, I want to leave? And next year, a bunch of teams have salary cap space. It's going to be the first year of this CBA. Someone's going to clear space for him.
Yep.
Does a Utah or someone who's going to tank get the room to say, hey, come over here. Let's have a chat. Or do the Clippers get rid of half their guys? They're all on expiring deals. Get rid of Paul George and say, hey, man, you want to come play in LA? Want to come have some fun?
Right.
A lot of teams could do something, make some space for him, and say, hey, you sign this extension with us. It'd be, I think, 4 years or 5 years, 160, 170. So he'd get a lot less money than he could with Minnesota. But I don't think it's a guarantee like some T-Wolves fans think it is, because their team is sitting in the middle of a dumpster fire in the middle of a lake that is falling off the world.
You don't want to be the Atlanta Hawks. Right? And I'll explain this. The Atlanta Hawks have been, with 1 year, and it's the year they ended up in a trade with Doncic. They drafted Doncic.
Trae Young.
Drafted Young, and they flipped. Okay. All right. The Hawks have always been good enough to finish 7th or 8th. They've always been good enough to get to the 6th or 7th game in the opening round and lose. By finishing in that spot, what does that mean? No ping pong balls, no lottery. They're always drafting 15th or 16th. Always. Over and over and over. So what happens is that with a rare exception, because they got to the third round one year?
Yeah, they got to the third round year.
They beat Philadelphia.
Beat Philly. They beat the Knicks, and then they got steamrolled by whoever it was that year.
I think it was the Celtics.
Yeah, Celtics.
Right. And guess what? You go out there, and all you do is tread water. And that's where Minnesota is. Minnesota is right now the Atlanta Hawks. Treading water. They're out of draft capital. Even if they get into, even if they fall back and they're in the lottery, it's not their pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not in good shape at all. Atlanta just keeps every year. It's rinse and repeat.
That's what the Wizards were.
In other words, good enough to get to this point, and by not getting past that point, they're just bad enough to be out of the lottery.
It's the exact issue the Wizards had. They had the Denny Avdia, Johnny Davises, Corey Kisperts of the world, where it's just like, what am I doing with these guys?
Nobody knows what they're doing with these guys. Like, LeBron's not wrong. A third of the guys in the league don't know how to play.
Yeah.
He's not wrong about that. You watch the games, you're sitting there going, okay, I don't get what I'm watching here. Like, this is what you do all the time? I mean, I know Allen Iverson makes fun of practice. I will say this, the Kevin Hart commercial with Iverson and Curry is funny.
Oh, beautiful.
Practice. We're talking game word. That's good. But
that's good. But
this is what that's why I always find it mystifying when I watch people make like big mistakes in games on the pro level. I don't mean the college level. Okay? To me, they're still kids. Okay? But on the pro level, this is what you do every day. Every day you do this.
We are sitting at a point with a lot of teams where they're going to have to start cutting salary. That is when we come to roster construction, that is kind of like this overarching issue.
Except you can only cut so much because there's a floor.
There's a floor, and you have to pay, I believe it's 90% of the salary cap every year. But the issue a lot of teams are going to face is where do they fall under those aprons that are going to take place when the CBA comes into effect?
During the process, the Sixers fell below the floor.
I believe it was 2 years ago or last year the Thunder were below the floor. And so each player, how it worked was if you were under the floor, you had to, that money that is there, for those who don't know, they had to pay the players. So I think each Thunder player got like $1.7 million for getting like 17 wins or something.
Feel good.
Yeah. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went home with a nice payday that year. He was feeling real good about himself.
Good.
But a lot of these teams are sitting at a point where if the CBA is signed, like the Warriors just made a tough decision. They said, we can't, if we want to bring back Draymond Green, we can't afford to have him and Clay and Steph and Poole on the same roster.
So they got rid of Poole.
And they got rid of Poole. They got rid of Poole, got Chris Paul. His money isn't guaranteed. They can get rid of him after a year as an expiring, and then they're off that money. A lot of teams are going to sit in this spot where they're going to have to get rid of someone. If you're the Timberwolves and you pay Edwards, let's say that happens, it kicks in 2024, 25, you're sitting at 3 players earning the entire salary of the team, a cool 130.
I always wonder about the evaluation of stuff. So let's take a great evaluation by your team.
My team?
Yes, the Knicks.
Is this a Villanova guy?
Yep.
Mr. Jalen Brunson.
Yep. I've talked about him before. When they signed him in the offseason, I thought, it was a bad move for the Mavericks. I mean, the Mavericks have replaced Jalen Brunson with Kyrie Irving. Right? Okay. In terms of pure talent, if you're saying only on talent, I'll take Kyrie Irving all 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what I need on the floor to win as a basketball player that also has talent, I'll take Jalen Brunson all 7 days.
Because he'll be on the floor.
Well, but he'll be on the floor. But Jalen Brunson, above all, you watch him play. Does he make a mistake once in a while? Everybody makes a mistake once in a while. That guy knows how to play the game. Now, part of that, is his father, obviously. But Jalen Brunson knows how to play. He knows how to make Obi Toppin better. He knows how to make Julius Randle better. And when things aren't going well, he looks around and says, okay, I might be the best option here. But that's after he's already figured out what all the other options are. Right? Is he a first-team All-NBA guy? No, but geez, I'd take that guy in a heartbeat. You put him on the Lakers? Oh, okay. Where suddenly LeBron just can go out and do whatever, and Davis can do whatever. Like, you got this guy, Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
He makes everybody around him better. You put him on the Celtics. The Celtics have back-to-back NBA titles if you put him on the Celtics. Okay? Marcus Smart makes a lot of mistakes. Here you go. Like Marcus, okay? No, I'm serious. Look at all the passes that are lazy passes that he makes that get picked off and go the other way. You're like going, you just wasted a possession by being casual. There are times he gets too casual out there.
Agreed.
Right? And I think he's a marvelous defender. He can make some shots. He has some good games. The game against Miami when they needed him, he stepped up, played great. But then he for some reason, gets into okay, what? That's 3 times down the floor, time to sit. Do you ever see Jalen Brunson make that play? No. No, he knows who he is, and he knows what he needs to do to be successful in the league, and taking a play off is not that. Is he the star of all stars in the league? No. Is he a second-team All-NBA guy? Probably not. But that's a winner. You finally got one.
We did it. We did it, Steve. We did it.
Right? Finally got one.
Feeling good, boys. Feeling great.
Yeah. He's even better than John Starks.
Oof. A lot of Knicks fans would be a little bit weird about that one. But there's a lot of teams, though, that are sitting in this place where it's like, what direction are you going to go in now? Let's go with the Hawks. With Quinn Snyder, they're going to try and win, but they've traded away a bunch of draft capital because of DeJounte Murray, who might leave this offseason, by the way.
I know.
John Collins is still there, still the second highest paid player on the team, somehow.
But here's their problem. Their problem is their most talented player.
Is Trae Young.
Okay? Trae Young, on his own, is a fabulous player. Trae Young does not make anybody around him better. The only person Trae Young makes better is Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, he'll take some shots where you sit there and go, okay, what was that about? Well, what? What are we doing there? Then he'll take a 30-footer against the Celtics. I think it was game 6, right? Or
and game 6 or game 5,
right?
One of them.
Yeah, game 5. Drains it.
Mm-hmm.
Right when they needed it. Like, okay, because he's that kind of talent, but he doesn't make anybody around him better. John Wall does not make people around him better. Okay? John Morant does not make people around him better. Okay? They got to understand who they are and what all the pieces are that fit. It's a 5-on-5 game. Hey, the second-round pick of the Denver Nuggets, Jalen Pickett, is he the best athlete in the league? No. But he's got a brain.
Brains help. Brains are good.
Right? Where he figures out, I said this on the broadcast several times during the year. I said, and the TV guys with that, I remember talking with Jim Jackson, and Jim said to me, he says, Steve, he says, and you know, Jim and I did a couple games together. So we were talking at the NCAA. He says, tell me about Pickett. I said, first 5 minutes of the game, Jim. I said, he figures out the temperature in the room, figures out what's working, what's not working, and then goes from there. Penn State ran a play. I'm trying to think. I think it was the start of the game against Texas A&M. And they come down the floor. Pickett feeds Kebajai. Slam dunk. So Dick and I are talking to Micah after the game. We're like, hey, how about Pickett like getting Jai out of the gate right away? And he says, he looks over and he starts laughing. He says, Says, I'm really lucky my point guard's smarter than me. He says, I said, why is that? He says, because the play was set up for Lundy in the corner, right? And all of a sudden he kind of glanced over at Lundy and then popped Jai free and got him. He said, it gave Kev all this confidence. He said, it's great having a guy like that. Okay? Now, there's the guy who makes the right decision. Does Trae Young make that play?
Nope.
No. Right? And Trae Young's going to make exponentially more money than Jalen Pickett. He's going to be in the All-Star game. Jalen Pickett won't be. He's going to be, he's going to get all these accolades. Jalen Pickett won't. But in terms of how to play the game, and he's not the athlete Trae Young is either, right? But in terms of how to play the game, you'd like to take his brain and implant it, right? In terms of how to play it. I mean, that's how smart Jalen Pickett is. Right? The league needs more players like that, and that's one of the reasons why Atlanta's got a problem. Their star is a problem, right? When you are voted by the other players as the most overrated player in the league, that is a problem because it's anonymous and they believe it.
Yeah. Based on current salaries and who is where, Trae Young is set to be, I believe, the 16th highest paid player in the NBA this season.
Right.
The players... Well, he's technically tied with Luka because they were that draft. They got the same extension,
right,
whatever.
Sure, right.
The players below him, I just want to give you some names of players who are, as of this moment, if they had accepted their contracts, would be around the same ballpark he is. So below Trae Young, you've got, firstly, Ben Simmons.
Oh, God.
Pascal Siakam.
It's a good player.
Good player. Devin Booker, his contract hasn't kicked in yet, so they're making 36 next year.
I am a big Devin Booker guy. Have been since day one. Really have liked Devin Booker since day one.
Another guy we just discussed, same draft class, same team from college, Karl Anthony Towns. You've got James Harden, if he picks up his option, John Morant, all those guys from that draft, the Tatums, the Adebayos, Donovan Mitchell, Shai Alexander, all these guys earning less than Trae Young is.
See, Donovan Mitchell makes people around him better.
Yeah.
James Harden does not.
At least James Harden tries to make people better around him. Trae Young, it feels like, does not.
Yeah, he tries.
Harden
tries
to.
And then after 5 minutes of trying, says, I think I should take some shots.
But that is at least better than what Trae Young does. And it feels like Trae Young just, he is what people viewed Steph Curry as at the start of Steph Curry being great. He is what people thought Steph Curry was, where he was like, oh, he just takes shots from anywhere, and it's an issue.
He is what I thought he would be after watching him at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Remember at Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah.
He got off to the first, I'd say, through the middle of January. So you're talking about November, December, middle to late of January. Wow. This guy's going to be great. Then you start watching him in February and March. Like, wear down, get tired, still taking the same shots. Now we're missing them. Because guess what? We're worn down. We're tired. Not making anybody in Oklahoma better. I remember when the Hawks drafted Doncic, I thought, wow, what a great pick. Then they traded him for Young. I said, yep, they'll be treading water. They're still treading water.
And
I know that Doncic didn't make the playoffs this year, and Young did. I know that, but still.
And he repeats the pull-up from the parking lot. He would just pull up from everywhere and tries to make it. What was against Rhode Island, I think, was that first round game?
Yeah.
Where he was just pulling up from everywhere, trying to hit every shot.
Right, and down the stretch, Oklahoma lost a lot of games down the stretch.
Because he did that.
They lost a ton of games. Right? And you're like, and I think the Rhode Island coach was Danny Hurley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's why when he got drafted, I'm like, oh, this guy's not going to. And that's the reason why, because watching him at Oklahoma, if you asked me on January 15th of that season, his freshman season, I would go, he is going to be a great NBA player. I can't wait to watch him. You ask me on February 15th, this guy is just going to go in circles and not go anywhere because you can see he wore down. He wore down in a 35-game season.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when it's 82?
He is making close to the same money that Damian Lillard does. And both are score-first guards, but Dame is astronomically better.
I'd take Lillard in a heartbeat over this guy.
Even if you go back to when Dame was the same age Trae Young was, even then he was better because he understood, I'm the guy, but there's four other guys in the court with me, and I need to make sure they're also working, because if they're working, I can be better.
But you go down the court and you go, okay, I've got great options around me. Let's use them. Mm-hmm. Right? And there's going to be an option out there. It's not a great option. Okay, how can I get the most out of him? Okay, so let's take Robert Williams. Okay, I don't want Robert Williams taking the ball on the, so I'm passing the ball over. I'm not passing him to wing unless it's just to eat up a little bit on the plate, whatever. Okay, I'm trying to get him to rim run, right? Because it's good for us, it's good for him. But it goes back. What was the first thing I said? It's good for us. Mm-hmm. Us, not me.
Keyword
us. Okay, just like this, it's us.
It is us.
But you have to do the big outro.
Of course. And before we leave, I want to get one name out right now. We'll discuss him tomorrow because I am very intrigued to see what you think about him. But the man I'm thinking about is Kyle Kuzma. It's going to be a very fun topic to discuss tomorrow because he declined his contract extension for $13 million for next season, a player option. He's a free agent. He wants about $30 million this coming offseason. Not a lot of teams have salary cap space for a 27-year-old forward he can do both. If he's a good wing player, he can score pretty well. He can defend okay. But he's sitting in a fun spot. I think tomorrow's going to be a fun day to discuss that. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, we'll talk about that because, let me put it this way. The similar kind of guy is Kristaps Porzingis.
Mm-hmm. Both are on the same team.
So guess what? The Celtics took that guy, the 23.5 point a game guy.
Yeah, the unicorn, baby. And of course, thanks for tuning into Sports Talk with Steve Jones,
Didn't your team draft him?
I don't know what you're talking about. You know what? It's okay. He's going to come back to New York. He thought he got booed big time at the draft, Porzingis. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be so much worse when he comes back with the Celtics. Oh, it's going to be bad.
Why don't they boo Phil? He drafted him.
Doesn't matter. It is going to be a terrible time.
I mean, he did not hold the Knicks operation hostage and release them one at a time until they picked him.
No.
The Knicks picked him.
But of course, thanks for tuning in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, Seven Mountains Media production at our new time of 11 a.m. every single morning during the weekday. Check back daily for all the latest sports news and analysis. The voice of Penn State football and men's basketball.